Welcome back to AWM Insights. As many of you know, this is a series we're going through on how to build best-in-class portfolios. In our last episode, episode 1 of the series, we talked about why. Why do we even talk about this? Why does anyone need a portfolio? And just a quick recap there is really focused on protecting your earnings, creating generational wealth, and guarding against the unexpected, some upsets or losing a game, if you want to use that analogy. And today, just like every athlete really does need to prepare a game plan ahead of time, or every coach does, we're going to break down how you actually create your own generational wealth building portfolio. Our quick take here, our quick perspective before we dive into details is really focusing on intentional, personalized, customized strategies. No cookie cutter solution is really where we want our client money to be invested, right? That's kind of for the masses, for the average investor, if you want to say that. We really apply and believe strongly in this truly intentional, purpose-driven, personalized approach. So as we jump into it, Mina, the critical part of developing a game plan is understanding, well, A, the game you're playing, but B, the team you need, the positions, the position players, et cetera. And in our world, in this conversation, that really is what we would call an asset allocation. Jump into that. What is an asset allocation? Why do you need it? How do we think about it?
Yeah, an asset allocation is really simply the assets that you use and the combination in which you use those assets to achieve a portfolio that you deem is relevant and applicable for the goals that you're trying to accomplish. So the way I like to think about it in this example, in the first episode, if we talked about the playbook being sort of the overriding rules that we want to establish, asset allocation is the players that you actually sign and put on your team. And I also like to think of our clients as the owners of the team. So ideally, they want good outcomes.
That's right.
Where the GMs, we put the players in the positions that they actually need in and make sure that we invest in all the key roles to have, a formidable offense, a formidable defense, good special teams as well. Just diversity, balance in all different asset classes. You can really think about offense sort of as your stocks, and there's a mix there. There's public and private stocks. So maybe on the public side, there's your slot receivers. On the private side, there's your receivers that are further downfield. On the defense side, you can think about bonds. They're just there for stability. Defense, you always hear defense wins championships. Defense is there for you when your offense might not be doing so hot.
Keeps you in the game, right?
Definitely keeps you in the game. And then special teams, you can think about that as real estate, alternative assets, sort of uncorrelated, but you ideally also want them to do their job and their piece, because it is an important other element, I would say, of a team, and it just rounds everything off. So using really those three facets, we think about putting the right players in the right positions, but also establishing the game plan that we want and making sure that we enable our players to achieve success. So that personalization component, I'll also throw in another analogy, maybe using rookie contracts versus big deals, making sure that you have a balance of both. You're not exceeding the salary cap. You're maximizing it for its utility, just to get the best players possible and achieve the best results that you can within your budget.
They're great analogies, right? Where the common practice is to just say, oh, well, we're going to take your age, we're going to take your risk tolerance, and a 25-year-old, based on where they are in their career, whether they're an athlete or non-athlete, could have wildly different actual circumstances, goals, portfolios, and we need to take that into account and not just apply some sort of cookie cutter portfolio, off-the-shelf portfolio, which a lot of folks in the industry do. Another item I want to just hit on here when it comes to asset allocation, we talk a lot with our clients. I'm sure they hear the term human-centered, even within this podcast. And putting a little bit of teeth to that is really, what does that, trying to answer the question of what does that mean? And in this general framework, it's starting with you, your life plan, the owner of the team, and then our job is to build the investments around that to support it, as opposed to, again, going, hey, here's some off the shelf solution that, maybe is okay, but it's certainly not optimal and specific to you and who you are as a human. And we're going to invest you in this off the shelf portfolio, right? That is the cookie cutter solution versus starting with you, putting the human at the center, and then building something very customized around that. So critical to this whole endeavor as we further this conversation is the sports, using the sports analogy around preventing injury. The portfolio equivalent there is risk management, right? We kind of alluded to it when we talked about defense. I think defense is a great framework here, where defense keeps you in the game, it wins championships. But we want to talk through how we think about building a portfolio that has staying power. Again, building a portfolio that is human-centered, purpose-driven, but then has staying power based on those unique attributes of each and every one of you clients of ours.
Yeah. And just going back to an example that you used in the last episode, stretching, injury prevention is how you stay in the game, and diversification and risk controls really are central to that. So if you think about a football team, if your offense puts up 6 points, the only way you really win that game is if your defense does really, really well and, only gives up 3. So ideally having a team that can go out there and can deliver and execute when one portion of the portfolio is not doing so hot is key. The other thing too is with diversification, you have one guy go down, you ideally have a couple guys that can step in and fill those gaps, those voids. They're competent, they're skillful, and you don't just have an absolute massive drop off from the starters to the bench players. So having depth, having diversification, and also building a team in terms of the architecture, which you touched on, from a human-centered lens, that is there to win given the situation that you put the team in. An example is like, maybe you're in a division that's super pass heavy. Maybe you invest more into your, passing defense, and you still don't, forget about your running defense. Those big boys on the defensive line front. Those guys, have to be taken care of, and you have to have good defensive linemen. But you might shift a little bit more of your budget towards your defensive backs just to be competitive given the game that you're playing. So just being thoughtful from that end, making sure that you're planning appropriately, you're building an appropriate architecture for your team. You have diversification and depth there. That is key. And then rebalancing, I would say the analogy to that is, if a game plan isn't working, how quickly can you reshuffle your cards?
Mid-game adjustments,
Yeah. Make some plays, Omaha, Peyton Manning, just audible and still be successful and adapt to changing market conditions. So that competence and that skill and sophistication is super necessary to be able to, stay in the game, stay competitive, and ideally win in the long term.
Yeah. So we've touched on a lot of core concepts in actually implementing, putting money to work. The next episode, we're going to focus on making it truly human-centered. We've teased that out a little bit. What one item I want to leave you all with is this analogy around risk management, again, where if you were, it's kind of a riddle. If you were to pick where you were going to go camping at a lake in 10 years, you would study the water line and rain patterns and all that stuff and do some sort of statistical analysis and say, I've got like a 90% chance if I'm here, I'm not going to be underwater. That's how a lot of portfolios are actually built. The analogy on how we think about it is the best outcome, the best answer here is to actually build a houseboat effectively. So it rises and falls, right? And that's this idea of risk management, but rises and falls to your specific needs and your specific goals and priorities. We're going to get into more of that next episode around human-centered portfolio construction. But wanted to tease that out a little bit. Hopefully, as we do bring this to a close, like the idea here and the wonderful analogies between sports and having a playbook and actually building a thoughtful portfolio really resonate with many of you, with all of you. It should really free your mind, right? When you have a playbook, you have confidence in that playbook. You can go out there and execute on what you need to execute. You practice, you study film, and then when it comes to game time, boom, let's go. Let's not even worry about things, and that is certainly how we want you all to think about the portfolio, and focus on what you need to do. Focus what you need to do on the field or in the boardroom, and most importantly, with your family. So it's critical that you all understand the thought that goes into this and the intentionality here to give you that peace of mind. And hopefully this helps bridge that gap even more so. So with that, we'll wrap. Like I said, next episode is going to be on making your portfolio truly human-centered and bringing purpose to money. That is incredibly important to us. It's true, bleeds through everything we do. So hopefully you'll tune in for that. Until then, own your wealth, make an impact, and always be a pro.